Hello and welcome. You're listening to the It's All in the Cards podcast, a horror fiction podcast where all questions are welcome, but you may not like the answers. Some material may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Too much has happened in the last few weeks. Too much has happened that Roz and Marine do not know about. Is that a bad thing, though? It used to be great. It used to be a wonderful thing for me to know things that they didn't, for me to use it against them later. But now, we are all in the same coven, and to some extent I have been mending what little bonds were left with those two, and forging new bonds with the new members of this coven. It makes sense to tell the rest of the group that their best-kept secret is no longer a secret. To tell them that somehow the buried mother is gathering, either more minions or followers, we don't know yet, but she's growing in power. At least Marine, Roz, and the High Priestess of the Sisters of Hecate should be informed of what Gale and Marcus told me and what I discovered on Christmas at the Glory Hole. But I'm watching Laura Pugh, the new High Priestess, try and fail, oh so fail, at teaching a lesson to the coven. A lesson she asked to take over now that she was in charge, and instead of spilling the beans, all I want to do is laugh.
It's All in the Cards, Season 3, Episode 7, Whispers B3.
Marine and Roz must have some faith in her to teach the class, since Roz stepped down for her and is helping her through the transition. But it does make sense for the new High Priestess to be teaching these classes, at least until she picks her priestesses to be her helpers. I'm surprised she hasn't picked at least one yet. She has an inner circle in the coven of friends I thought she would for sure tap for the positions. I don't think she's above nepotism on principle, but she may be smarter than I give her credit for. Then again, this is a lesson on grounding, and since Laura is a kitchen witch, I don't think she's grounded herself in her life. She makes her kitchen a sacred place before walking into it, but that's not the same as grounding. So she may be exactly as arrogant and self-serving as I think she is. I do wonder, though, if this move is just the beginning of her trying to push me out. But after all the headway I've made with this coven, and reestablishing those friendships, she's got to know that's not a smart move. If she didn't know before, she damn well knows now. Sam and her neophytes are making sure of it. It's a rule that after initiates become full-fledged members, they still attend the neophyte classes for a year to keep the information fresh in their minds and to help newcomers. Sam, a little tanner than she should be for this time of year, due to her trip to Florida, chirps back and forth with Justice and Hannah. It doesn't take long for their scheme to be pushed into action.
Are there any questions so far? Oh, Sam. You have something for us?
Yes. Shouldn't someone who actually practices this technique show us how to do it? You're just a kitchen witch, right?
Laura goes pale and then tries to check herself, but her initial reaction was seen by a few.
As the High Priestess of this coven, I am perfectly capable of teaching such a basic lesson.
When was the last time you used the grounding technique for yourself?
She stops looking at Sam and turns her attention to the newbies.
When you make your place of craftwork sacred and safe by other means which I will be happy to show you in another lesson.
Why didn't you plan to show us those means that you use, since those are what you are very experienced in?
For a split second, I think Laura is going to shut her down. But, like a child, or perhaps someone who feels like they have to prove something, Laura gets defensive and lets this back and forth continue.
What I do is not part of the starting curriculum for initiates.
But these initiates are not new to the craft, they're new to this coven. Didn't you speak to each of them to learn this?
Laura forces a smile to her lips.
If you have feedback for how I teach lessons, let's save that feedback for when we are not in the middle of one. Any other questions?
Sam raises her hand and doesn't wait for Laura to call on her.
Yeah. Are there any guidelines to how long after a High Priestess is initiated that she can be recalled? Just wondering.
Laura ignores her. Whether she knows everyone's seen her rattled or not is up for debate, but she does her best to press on and survive the rest of the lesson. And the newbies are not oblivious to the tension. I wonder if this will scare them off or not. I text Sam that she needs to tone it down and not try to scare the newbies off. She doesn't send anything back, but she smiles and looks at me. I see the mischief in her eyes. She has no plans on taking it easy on Laura. I don't blame her, even if I was happy with Laura being High Priestess. It's like a new teacher coming in halfway through the school year. Getting shit from the students is a rite of passage, and if she can actually handle what Sam throws at her, she just further proves she deserves the title. But if today's reaction is any indication, then Laura is on her way to showing the Coven how inept she is. Though that last question was a bit much. And with the fiery glances Laura's throwing at me, she thinks I put Sam up to this. Great. Some more ammunition for her to use against me. I don't plan on lingering after class, but a few of the newbies introduce themselves to me. They're schoolmates of Sam's and have heard all the wonderful things I am able to do. They had hoped I was teaching the class and asked if they could come by the store and learn tarot. I hadn't ever thought about taking on another student. I didn't even want to take on Sam, but I wouldn't have it any other way now. I tell them they are welcome to stop by and check out my decks, but no promises on the teaching tarot bit. I make my way out of the woods into Marine's house. It's a bit strange not to see her at the lesson too, but I guess they are also learning to adjust to the new pecking order. I wonder if Marine wants to do this anymore. She and my mother were carrying on what their family started, but now that Mom's gone, Aunt Beatty is not well, and even if she was, she wouldn't touch the Coven with a 10-foot pole. And Roz is no longer High Priestess. What's the point for her? Roz is on the porch, a handful of wood stacked in her arms that she's toting inside. I run up behind her. I'll get the door for you.
My, aren't you just a class act?
Don't hold your breath. I'm cold and just want to make sure it's nice and toasty while we chat.
There was a time when being close to me was all you needed to stay warm.
I am not ready for that comment. We hadn't talked about our past in a long time. We've been concentrating so hard on the future, the shadow of our past friendship has been far from my mind as I focus on the chance at a new one. I wonder what has her in this mood. That was when your fire still burned inside. Pretty sure those embers died a long time ago. She walks inside but looks at me as she responds.
You thought you'd hate us forever? Things change, Jade.
And yet some things never change. I follow her in but don't help her with the wood. I go straight to Marine in her recliner. She's looking more and more frail, but like Master Yoda, even in her feeble age, she can still kick ass. I hope her voice is enough, along with Marcus and Gale, to sway the circle into doing something about the buried mother before it's too late.
Jade, we were hoping you would stop by. How was the lesson?
Enlightening.
That sounds promising.
Sam and her friends made a point to call Laura out. Laura could have handled it much better. You can let Sam fill you in and reprimand her, or pump your fist at her, I'll let you decide. But I've come with another pressing matter.
Oh?
Have you been through the woods outside your little slice of heaven here? Roz finishes with the wood and comes to my side.
I have. Mom hasn't left the house in a bit.
But I know what you're about to say.
It's more than that, Marine. It's like a sickness is overtaking the mountains. But she's specifically giving your land and the circle a wide berth.
She can't get past my wards.
She's not even trying to breach your wards. There is no mark of her anywhere near your wards on your land. She knows it's useless and focuses her strength elsewhere. And believe me, I want to believe that my mother's sacrifice made the world of difference, but it may have been just enough to entomb the buried bitch again and not extend the strength of the seal.
Your mother wasn't the first one to make that choice. Our ancestor was the first to make the sacrifice and capture the buried mother in her body to see herself in that tomb and tar, and it lasted 50 years. It wasn't until later they realized her sacrifice wasn't eternal, but that they didn't have to recreate it, just recharge it. The recharge is the ceremony we have performed for almost 160 years. Your mother's sacrifice should have lasted at least 3 more decades.
I'm so glad you're just now revealing this information to me. Why isn't this part of your lesson to the Coven?
The High Priestess doesn't know this bit of information yet.
I wonder why that is. Wait a second. Aunt Beatty had spoken to me about the next cycle coming up for the ritual. Maureen's stoic face drops at the mention of this.
She knows how long your mother's sacrifice should have gotten us.
Unless she's being forgetful in her illness.
Or she sees the same signs I do. Hell, she would have had to seen them sooner. She asked me to be her replacement in the sealing circle over a year ago. Maureen's eyes widen as if this is news to her, but she quickly hides her reaction once again.
I will see this for myself, then, and assess whether or not we try to take it to the circle to act on.
That's not all, Maureen. Marcus and Gale, the vampire and the elemental, reached out to me.
That is no cause for alarm. They had agreed to report...
And report they have. On top of the illness over the woods, they feel her presence in the surrounding areas, including Mountainburg. They believe either her minions are walking or she's recruiting followers. But before that, at Halloween, as I was helping a necromancer control his awakening powers, the spirit spoke to him about the buried mother. How much more evidence do you need that the seal is breaking and she's oppressing our lands? Maureen shakes her head and looks away, pondering what I've said.
Why didn't you tell us about the necromancer?
Because I knew that the whispers of the dead would not be enough to make anyone take action. God, why is it so difficult for everyone to come together to recharge the seal?
It takes more power than you know to do it, Jade. More power than most of the circle likes to admit to, and everyone becomes weak for a time. They fear that weakness.
That would have been nice to know. Exactly how much information about the sealing circle have you been withholding from me?
I'm not denying you information on the basis of mistrust, Jade. These details I know that I've kept, I've not wanted to bother you with. One of them you would find out for yourself at your first ceremony, and the other you were supposed to witness as time passed. That your mother gave us 50 years of peace, almost a lifetime for you, so you would not have to be burdened with it. But that is not coming to pass.
The worry is plain on her face now. Things are not going the way they should be. The sickness is spreading across the forest. Her minions are walking freely, and it's only a matter of time before someone gets hurt. You can assess the woods if you want, but I'm not moving that slowly. I scried for the largest concentration of her power close to town. Gale and Marcus are to monitor that area and intercept if they can, any attacks or detect attempts to influence.
The circle will not like this.
The circle can kiss my ass. It's not their life and magic they're risking. The more I hear about this circle, the more I wonder how they are any better than the bitch they buried. Are you going to play by their petty rules while it's our neighbors who fall to her?
Be careful that your anger and need for justice don't condemn us all, Jade. Roz will take me further up the mountain and into town, and I will see it for myself.
That's all I ask for, Maureen. Let me know what you decide. If Gale or Marcus find anything, I will let you know. I turn to leave without another word, but I give Roz a glance before I step out the door. She gives me a knowing look right back, as if she's seen all the signs too, but either has said nothing or Maureen has shut her down. She may be content to abide by her mother, but I am not. If we don't do something soon, someone is going to end up hurt or worse, enthralled. I guess we'll see which happens first. A few days go by. Gale and Marcus report nothing amiss, though her presence is heavily felt around Lake Fort Smith and the nearby RV park. They keep their vigil and tell me to reach out if I have any updates. I wish I did. This waiting around for something to happen sucks ass. It's like watching a horror movie that the music goes silent in the scene, and you know that there's a jump scare about to happen. You know it, but you startle anyway when it happens. Ephraim is at his post. Same spot every day, drinking his coffee and watching out the window. I fight the urge to ask him if he knows anything about the buried mother. It was a coven secret, but Mom might have told him something about it while he was still here. But what would she have told him that would be helpful? Most likely nothing. So, I bite my tongue and continue to not speak to the deadbeat dad. Christmas haunts my thoughts. What I felt and saw at the Nexus at the Glory Hole. What I told her I would do. I don't like the thought of her being in my head, but it's a reality I have to face. I've got to figure out how to make good on the deal we made. I think about it as I walk around the store. I look up from the box of novelty tarot decks Sam convinced me to buy, and take in the woman at the door. Her dark hair is pulled back into a ponytail, and she chews on her thumbnail as she scans the shop. When her eyes land on me, they widen for just a second before she hurries over. Good morning. My name is Jade. Can I help you find something?
I'm Elena. I was hoping you could do a reading or scrying or whatever you can do. I need to find my husband.
Okay, Elena, take a breath. I can do a reading, but I can't guarantee that I find your husband. How long has he been gone? I watch as she takes a giant breath and wipes her palms on the front of her faded shirt.
Sorry, it's been almost a week and he wasn't supposed to be gone this long. But sometimes these things take more time than you'd expect, so I didn't want to go to the police right away.
What is he doing that could take a week but usually doesn't? As I lead her through the store to the reading room, my mind flits through the possibilities, ranging from transporting a rescued dog to disposing of a body at sea. She did mention the police.
He's hiking.
I'm almost disappointed that it's something as simple as that. The dummy probably mistook north for south and ended up in Missouri. Does he normally go hiking? She shakes her head strongly as she settles into her seat.
No, he hasn't been in years. It's complicated.
I pick up my deck and give her a stare. I'm gonna need to hear the complicated.
Why?
It could affect the outcome of the reading. I need all of the information so I can clearly see what the cards are telling me. Also, this sounds interesting, and it's been kind of a boring day.
Well, my husband Tyler used to go hiking every year with his buddies from college. It was kind of a tradition they had ever since they got high freshman year and got lost, walking around the woods near their dorm. They said it was an existential experience and bonded them like brothers, so they started doing it every year as a tribute.
They get high in the woods every year?
No, not since college, but they always enjoyed being in nature and the camaraderie of working together, so it became this thing they did. Except they kind of stopped doing it a few years ago.
Did they have a falling out?
No, nothing as dramatic as that. They just got busy, you know? Tyler and I got married and wanted to spend vacation time together. Joe moved to Michigan, so he couldn't come back every year. And Mikey had a kid. They just stopped prioritizing it, and they realized they weren't talking as much as they used to. This trip was supposed to be a way for them to reconnect and make sure they stay in each other's lives.
I nod. Nature does have a way of bringing people together. How long were they supposed to be gone for?
They left on Thursday, and were supposed to be back Monday, but Tyler took Tuesday off from work, too, just in case things went well and they wanted to stay out for another day. So I wasn't surprised that he didn't come back Monday night, but now...
Now it's Wednesday. Okay, let's see what the cards have to say. This first one explains the situation at hand, in case there's something you forgot to mention. The Four of Wands. This is a celebration, an achievement, a community coming together.
Just like I said, they wanted to fix their friendships by going back to an old tradition.
That does seem to be the case. You'll have to forgive the cards. Sometimes people are not as open and forthright with their explanations. The cards never lie, though.
This is too important to lie about.
I didn't mean you. There could be a bit about this trip your husband didn't tell you. She goes a bit paler than she already is, and then her cheeks turn red.
Some husbands lie to their wives. Mine does not.
I bob my head, let her believe in her husband, and flip over the second card. I glance up, but her eyes are focused on the image of the moon facing her. This card makes my skin crawl, a reaction I've never gotten out of this card. Something else is going on here. If she noticed my reaction, she isn't showing it. The moon reversed. There's some deception and confusion having an effect here. You seem so sure of your husband, but what about his friends that he's hiking with? Are they trustworthy? Her eyebrows draw together at the question.
Of course. They haven't been on trips together in a while, but none of them are into anything weird or dangerous. Tyler trusted them with his life, and I do too.
I wet my lips before asking the next question, hoping she can't read the nervousness on my face. If it is what I think it is. And where were they hiking?
Up around Lake Fort Smith.
I go still at the answer. Shit.
None of them have been up there before, but Tyler was the navigator for the trip, so he's been studying maps for weeks and scouted it out ahead of time. He knew exactly where to go, so I don't believe they got lost or confused out there. Something must have happened.
My stomach bottoms out at her words. Something indeed. You know what? I have friends that live right by those woods and go out there every day. They know every tree and bush. Why don't I give them a call and see if we can get a good old-fashioned search party going?
Really? You would do that? But you don't even know me.
I flap a hand as I stand up. Why not help where I can? It only takes a phone call.
That would be great. But, what about the last card?
We both look down at the third card, still face down on the table. Sometimes we don't need the full message of the cards if we already know what path they are pointing us to. She may be curious about it, but I'm not. Whatever the card is, the message will be the same. Something bad has happened to those men in the woods, and that buried bitch is behind it all. We walk out to the front of the store, and I circle around the corner to grab the phone, dialing Maureen's number.
Jade, what a pleasant surprise. What did I do now to earn a morning phone call?
Maureen, hi! So sorry to call you this early.
Have you been kidnapped?
No, I've got a customer here in the store who needed a reading to help find her husband. He and some friends went hiking the Lake Fort Smith Trail and perhaps neighboring trails, and they should have come home by now.
Goddess, no.
Yes. Do you think we could organize a little search party? I'm wondering if these men may have wandered onto your property. I glance up at Elena, who smiles hopefully.
You really think she got them? But how?
I can't tell you until we find them, now can I?
No need for snark, Jade. I'll have Laura put out a call to the Coven to gather bodies. We will need as many people as possible to comb the woods.
Do we need to involve her?
She's the High Priestess, Jade. If we want help from the Coven, it has to come from the top. You know that.
I turn away from Elena and lower my voice. But she's going to make everything take 10 times longer. You know she's going to wait to send out the call, and then she'll want to be the eyes on the ground. We don't have time for that.
It's either you let me call her or you do it yourself. I will not organize the Coven alone. They need faith in their leader, not undermining from a former High Priestess.
Do it myself. Why didn't I think of that? Fine, but make sure she knows it's urgent.
I will let her know.
Thank you. I turn back to Elena, a false smile on my lips. She's putting out the call to her neighbors. They're going to organize a search party. If you give me your number, I'll let you know if they find anything. That way you can stay in cell service if they call you first.
Thank you so much, Jade. You're a lifesaver. Here, I could send you a picture of them too so you know what they look like.
She scribbles her number on receipt paper and emails me a photo of the men together. They're all similar in build, probably a little more of them than there was in college, but nothing unusual for their age. Tyler, in the middle, has blonde hair, while the other two are darker, with one of them sporting a full beard. They look like any group of 3 guys you would see walking around town, if I'm honest. If only she knew what the cards were trying to say, what her husband and his friends experienced out in those woods. Slowly, I make my way back to the reading room, my eyes drawn to the last card of the reading. I take in a deep breath, I reach out and turn it over. 3 of Pentacles reversed. Group conflict, self-interest, and competition overriding teamwork. The buried mother was there all right, but we'll probably never know just what she whispered into their minds, the discord she sowed, the tiny way she tore their friendship apart until all that was left was distrust and fear. I step outside and sit on the bench in front of my store window. Ephraim went for a walk up Garrison and no one else is around, so I'm not worried about anyone overhearing. Gail, can you hear me? Gail!
You didn't call my name correctly.
His voice carries on the wind, but I don't think he's actually here. It's part of his powers that he can hear everything carried on the wind in his domain. He's probably still a mountain bird like he should be, but letting his voice come to me. Gail, you hear me now. Why do I need to say the full thing?
I'm sorry, Jade, but you're breaking up. What was that?
Gale Windstorm, keeper of the straight-lined winds, herder of thunderclouds, hear me.
I hear your plea, Jade. What would you have of me?
I just had a woman come in worried about her missing husband. He was hiking around Lake Fort Smith with 2 friends, but might also be on the neighboring trails. Can you or Marcus go check it out?
I'll go. Marcus is kind of stuck until nightfall, but he's still able to keep an eye on things.
Thanks, Gal. Let me know what you find.
As you request, so it shall be.
Just like that, he's gone again. I decide to close up the store early and head to Marines to be closer if any action does pop off. If it's the Endless Man killing, not much I can do about him yet, other than survive his encounter. But if it's the meager hand of the buried mother reaching for someone, that I can probably ward off. At least until time to deliver on my deal. Just as I pull up in front of Marine's house, Gail's voice whispers to me from the back seat.
Well, good news, bad news.
Bad news first, Gail.
Oh, really? I thought people liked the good news first and then the bad.
I'm not most people.
Should have known that about you, Miss Jade. I am always fascinated by those who do not follow the pattern. The mountain, steadfast against the windfall.
Get to the news, Gail.
Oh, right. Well, I found 2 bodies.
Where?
About a mile from your coven circle.
I'm at Marine's house now. Can you come and get me?
Step out of your car, Jade, and I'll escort you.
Give me 1 second to tell Marine and Roz. As if she hears me, Roz steps out onto the porch, arms crossed, waiting for me. I get out of my car and stand in front of the house. Has Laura made the call yet?
She just did. The coven will be meeting at the circle shortly.
Tell her to call them off. Gail and Marcus found them. Roz drops her arms.
Where?
About a mile from our coven circle. Do you want to come with?
Give me 1 second to let Mom know.
Roz darts back in the house, which gives me time to ask a fun question. Gail, you still there?
I'm not there yet, but I will be in just a few seconds.
Can you carry more than one of us at a time?
I can carry as many as needed. Why do you ask?
I have someone coming with me.
One of your sisters?
Yes. The wind picks up and I look for Gale. His energy glistens in the sunlight as if he's a mirror. He lands behind me just as Roz comes out of the house. She pauses for a second to take in what she's seeing.
The wind elemental?
Gale bows as he hovers above the ground, picking up more leaves and twigs in his life current.
Gale Windstorm, at your service.
He's going to escort us to the missing hikers. Roz steps down off the porch, zipping her jacket as she approaches.
By all means, lead the way.
Brace yourself.
For what?
Gale lifts us both with his powerful gusts and shoots us through the air as if we are feathers caught in an updraft. It's not as long of a trip as the first time he escorted me to the circle, but the feeling of being in the sky, carried by the force of the air, never gets old. Gale lands us in the woods, and I immediately look around. Roz collapses to the ground, shaken by the flight. You good, Roz?
A little warning. Would have been nice, Jade.
Yeah, but not as fun for me. Come on, were you really just scared the whole time?
You know I hate heights.
You were safe, you were flying. Damn, give a witch a broom and she just turns her nose up at it. Gale lands beside Roz and leans over her as if to pick her up.
Are you all right?
Roz gets to her feet unaided.
I'm fine. Where are the hikers?
The first is just there.
If he hadn't pointed it out, I wouldn't have seen the body. It's half covered by the foliage blown around by the strong winter wind, and he's also in tan and green hiking clothes that blend in with the surroundings. His face is pale, gaunt with death, but not mangled. He must not have been out here long if nothing has started eating him yet. I get my phone out to look at the image. It's not Tyler. It must be one of his dark-haired friends. Where are the others?
The second one is over the edge there. It looks like he fell, or was pushed. This one was stabbed with a pocket knife. Looks like the one who fell did the stabbing, based on the blood on his hands.
You've already examined both bodies?
Yes.
I hold up my phone for Gale to look at and point at the man in the center. Is this the man who fell?
No, it's not.
That means the husband is still missing. These are the 2 friends he came with.
Therein lies your bad news. But there's worse. I don't think the husband met the same fate as these 2.
You think the buried mother took him?
I do. As sure as she's entering the minds of town folks. But those unlucky enough to venture into the woods right now are in even more danger.
We have to keep the coven out of the woods and find a way to warn others to stay away.
Right now, we need to call the police and bring them in for these 2, and they can officially hunt for the husband.
That means I'll have to tell Elena what we found and to contact the police. They'll take it from there with her, but man, I was really hoping to have better news for her, or at least not to break the bad news to her.
At least there's one good thing from all of this.
And what would that be?
We can convince the circle to do something now.
This episode was written by Ashley McAnelly and Morgan Valko, featuring the voice talents of Ashley McAnelly, Nicole Goodnight, Aaron Lillis, Erica Sanderson, Mish Ward, Scott Thomas, and Jessica McAvoy. Theme music by The Arsonist. Outro music by Athan. We'd like to give a shout out to our recent Patreon subscribers: Donnie, Stella Gilly, Brian Leck, Kathy Dung, Wendy Long, Marcus Demanda, Dolly Anderson, Sad Horror Clown, Najee P., Abby Conzin, Boss Richards, Mike Small, Ellie Palacios, Victoria Delatorre Kennedy, and Kelly Hukala. If you too would like to support the podcast, please check us out on Patreon, or you can also listen for updates as we launch our merch shop this year. Excited about that. Links in the show notes. Thanks for listening.